A dozen presidential candidates from both parties were in Washington today for a forum on climate change. 11 Democrats and 1 Republican are participating in a series of question and answer sessions at Georgetown University. The highest polling candidate participating, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, took a shot at both President Trump and his fellow Democratic candidates during his session.
It seems to me you can approach this problem in one of 3 ways. You could do what Trump does, which is basically irresponsible and pathetic. You can do what some of my colleagues do and say, look, of course climate change is real, but let's not overdo it. You know, we have a limited amount of money to spend here, and we got to be modest, and we got to be realistic about it. And a lot of folks are saying that. Maybe, you know, I don't know what to tell you. I happen to believe in what the scientists are telling us. And that means that if we're going to save the planet, we have to be extremely bold and extremely aggressive.
Joining me now to talk about the state of climate policy in the 2020 election is Mattias Lehman. He is the digital director for the Sunrise Movement, an advocacy network pushing for the Green New Deal. Mattias, thank you so much for being with us. Of the 3 highest polling Democrats, only Bernie Sanders is attending this climate forum. Joe Biden is reportedly fundraising in Chicago, and Senator Elizabeth Warren is hosting a town hall in Iowa City tonight. Both participated in the CNN Climate Forum last month, but what do you make of them skipping this one?
Well, I think we have to look at where we're coming from. There were under 7 minutes of coverage of climate change in 2018. And the CNN town hall was about 7 hours. So I think there is a degree to which some campaigns feel like they've kind of like put in the time. That's it, right? They've paid their dues, and now they can go back to doing what it is they want to do. For us, that's not really an option. We're going to make sure that campaigns know from here until the election that climate change is an important issue facing our generation, and we need our politicians to take it as seriously as is due.
So the last candidate to speak at the forum Friday will be former Massachusetts governor and Republican presidential candidate Bill Weld. Are there any questions you'd like to see him asked that are different from those posed to Democratic candidates?
Well, I mean, I hope he'd be willing to come out and say that he believes in climate change. That'd be a good start for most people on that end of the issue. But I think there are some questions as to how willing to make those changes Republicans and Democrats are, but in particular Republicans. The thing we're looking at here is, are people willing, and are our politicians willing to make these drastic changes? And I don't think we've seen that out of Bill Weld, of all people.
So I want to ask you about some news that CBS News has confirmed. Massachusetts Congressman Joe Kennedy will announce his primary challenge against Senator and Green New Deal co-sponsor Ed Markey. What are your thoughts on Kennedy's challenge?
Well, it does appear that there's a little bit of a conflict of interest. In one of the articles announcing his run, it mentioned that he has $1.5 million invested in the fossil fuel industry. So I think our first step for us here is you shouldn't be profiting from an industry that is going to run directly counter to the most important issue facing our generation. That's a huge red flag from the start. And I think it's one thing to say, yeah, we need to get young people into politics. Sure, but we need young ideas and fresh ideas. And not dealing with climate change is not a young and fresh idea. It's what we've been doing for 40 years. So at least from our perspective, if he's not willing to get to where Markey is as a co-author of the Green New Deal or past that, it's kind of a non-starter.
So is Sunrise going to campaign for Markey or against Kennedy?
We're not in the process of actively campaigning for or against any candidate at the moment, and that's going to be up to our political team. So.
All right. That's a very diplomatic response. All right. Well, Mattias Lehman, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.